Jess. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to week 2 at Aurelium Academy. If you don't know, this is week 2 of the Magical Readathon. It's a readathon that happens technically year round, but the biggest part of it happens in April and then August. It is a role-playing readathon where we have all made our characters and now we are going to magical school. I am currently in my 3rd year of Archmage training and I have finished 2 of my classes. I have passed 2 and this week I would like to pass potentially 2 more. I'm not entirely sure how reading is gonna go this week. My parents are visiting this week because last month was my birthday, but life has just been a chaotic mess and so they haven't had a chance to see me, so they want to take me out to dinner. And my mom is making me a raspberry cheesecake. I do think that that might impact my reading because they are going to be here for a couple days and obviously when they're here I'm going to be hanging out with them. I do have a couple of short books on the TBR though, so hopefully I can still get a decent amount of reading done. In light of that, I think I'm going to start with my spells and incantations class. For this class I need a book with 11 letters in the title. Basically you are supposed to randomly generate the number of letters you need in the title and I got 11. I do have The Chalk Man to read. This book follows this group of boys and they all write each other messages using sidewalk chalk and leave them at each other's houses, and instead of writing words they have a code where they draw these chalk men, and then I believe something starts happening where the messages start getting more sinister and somebody else is leaving the messages, and then eventually the chalkmen lead the group of boys to find a body in the woods. And now 20 years later the chalkmen are starting to show up again. I've never read anything by CJ Tudor, but we're gonna give this a go. So hi, welcome to the vlog. I'm not sure how much reading I'm gonna get done today because I do have a stream today. I stream video games on Twitch. Twitch is where I make my gaming content. YouTube is where I make my book content. Would I like those worlds to overlap more? Yes, but where's the time? If I could figure out how not to sleep without literally dying, that would be great. I'm gonna go eat some food. I'm gonna get my stream set up and I will probably talk to you tomorrow. Maybe? It doesn't matter. It's gonna be in a couple seconds for you, so enjoy. I'll talk to you later. Hello? I'm doing a face mask, and that means that it's time for a reading update. I'm about 1/3 of the way into The Chalk Man, and so far I am liking the thriller aspects of it, but I do have mixed feelings overall. This is a dual timeline story with one timeline taking place in 1986 and the other timeline taking place in 2006. You follow the main character and honestly I'm literally reading this and I don't remember what his name is, but when we're in the 1986 timeline, I want to say he's 12 and he's part of this little group of kids, and these kids collectively use chalk to leave each other messages, but then something sort of happens and they start getting messages that aren't from each other and things get really creepy and it kind of culminates in somebody dying. I'm not entirely sure who is going to die yet. It's definitely mysterious. The intrigue level, I just got face mask on my finger. The intrigue level is very high in this book, and it seems there's a lot of moving parts in this book. It also seems one of those thrillers where the lead up, the culmination to what ends up happening, the murder, is one of those things where it's not just hey, this person's out killing people. It's a result of a bunch of different factors within this community all contributing to what ultimately happens, which is something that I really like. Not necessarily in thrillers, just in general, I like to see how things are more nuanced, like the cause and effect is a more nuanced than just like it's just this one person doing things, you know? Like I like to see a wider perspective of why things happen, especially when you examine a community. The reason that I'm having mixed feelings about this book though mainly has to do with like enjoyment factor. Just from like a plot and intrigue point of view, I'm really liking it. However, the language in here, when like the main character and his friend group are all 12, like they're really immature, like they just want to like shock people like to see that response in them, you know what I mean? It's just really dipping my enjoyment. I know that like there's a lot of messiness in this book. I don't necessarily think you're really supposed to like the main character. It seems very intentional that you're not supposed to, and so like I get that. I'm sure that kids did speak this way in 1986, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't also affect my enjoyment to be reading dialogue like with slurs and, you know, like using the word gay as an insult. Like every time it comes up, I'm just like, really? You can show kids being shitty to other kids, and you can also show like kids bullying, like outright bullying other kids without using slurs in that. Like you could just have them just do like regular insults, like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many ways you can make people seem like dicks. It's so easy. So that is dipping my enjoyment. The other thing that's dipping my enjoyment is that it feels very male gazy, and the thing is CJ Tudor is a woman, or at least uses she pronouns. I don't really know why this book feels male gazy. I mean, maybe as I get further into the book, I'll feel like there's like some commentary on the male gaze in here, but so far, no. I do not care what this man or this like boy 12-year-old child feel. Like I don't care how they feel about their friend who is a girl starting to develop boobs. I do not care. Every single woman or girl character in the book is only described based off of how attractive or unattractive they are, or how they serve the male character. But like I just am not enjoying reading that, and it's like it's really dipping my enjoyment, which is such a bummer because like the plot and the intrigue are so good, and like genuinely I feel like if just those two things were eliminated from the book, I feel like it could have the potential to actually be a 5-star, which like I can't even remember the last time I gave a thriller 5 stars. It's not fun, and reading should be fun. I mean, obviously I understand blah blah blah, we all have different reasons for reading, blah blah blah. I don't care. This is for fun. This is for fun. Why isn't it fun? I did also want to mention that there is a very significant trigger warning in here for sexual assault. An older child sexually assaults the main character, and it is on page, and it was gut-wrenching and heartbreaking to read. I think if that subject matter is a trigger for you, I do think that this will be triggering, even though I don't think it was necessarily like ultra graphic. Like there's more graphic content in this book, not like sexual assault graphic, like chopped up body parts graphic. You know, like it is a thriller, so like there is more graphic things that happen in the book. I'm rambling. I don't even think I'm like being cohesive at the moment. I'm like, also like I gotta get this face mask off. I've been here too long. Hopefully I'll be able to finish this today. We will see. I'm gonna go wash this face mask off, and hopefully I'll have an update after dinner. guess who finished another class? With this, I have officially passed my spells and incantations class, which means I am halfway done with my classes for the semester. I don't think I have much to say about this book other than what I've already said. I think my criticisms of my enjoyment of this book basically continued throughout the entire novel. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where it's like, the more it happens, the more annoying it gets. On one hand, the intrigue was getting higher and higher the further the book went along. My enjoyment of the book got lower and lower the further I went along. I think I'm going to settle on 3 stars for this book. I acknowledge that this was very well crafted, and I do think I would like to give CJ Tudor another try in the future. The way this was structured and the way the reveals and like the pacing and the plotting, I just think were amazing. When I think about the book and I think about like the feelings that thinking about the book evokes in me, I'm like, bleh. So that's why it's like, I feel like I can't rate it higher than 3 stars. One thing that I especially wanted to say though, that I loved about this, like loved, is that like CJ Tudor had like absolute master level of like misdirection. And I don't mean like red herring misdirection. I mean it in like the way that like a magician will be like, hey, I'm doing a trick, but like look over here and woo, like, is this your card? She did such a good job of leaving clues throughout the book so that once things were revealed, you're like, oh my God, of course it was that. Like, of course that is the solution. However, before the reveal even happens, you have no idea because you're not even thinking about that. There's so many moving parts in this, and like there's so many characters, and it's all a mess. And like basically this book is like a series of events where like all of the characters do something wrong. All of them are messy, and like there's so many different factors that lead to the eventual outcome. She'll be like, this is what happened here, and you'll be like, oh my God. And then like 8 chapters later we'll wrap around to that point, but you've forgotten that that point already happened because she's presented you with like 8 other things. So it's like you're constantly being misdirected to think about something else, so that when like the reveals and like the twists come in, it feels so shocking, but it absolutely makes sense. It's been a while since I've read a book where I feel so torn into different directions when I think about how I want to rate it, where it's like, on one hand, this part like was the worst, and on the other hand, this is phenomenal top tier writing. I think the last time I actually felt this torn was when I was reading Murakami. Sometimes the Murakami starts Murakamiing and you just gotta get past it. So yes, I'm gonna give this a 3 star. In other news, since I have more time this week, I was thinking lore quest time. I'm not gonna like talk about the specifics of the lore quest because like if you're gonna do the lore quest, I don't want to spoil anything. Like I don't want to tell you my choices. I don't want to like nothing. I found the paper and we are moving forward, and so I need to read a book with a moon on the cover, and I am going to pick up Arrow's Flight by Mercedes Lackey. I don't know how easy it is to see, and I hope that this is in focus, but there is a moon behind the trees. This is the 2nd book in the Arrows of the Queen trilogy, which is Mercedes Lackey's first trilogy. Mercedes Lackey is a comfort author of mine. I found like literally this book as like a kid. I think I was in like 6th grade, and I found like 30 of her books at a used bookstore, and I got all of them. It's been a really long time since I have read anything by Mercedes Lackey, so I did start last year. I restarted and I read the first book in this series, and I set a goal for this year that I want to like be current on Mercedes Lackey's books. Like listen, her backlist is vast and extensive, so it's gonna like take me a while because I really feel like I need to genuinely like reread all of them. So I set a goal for this year that I wanted to read her first 2 published trilogies. All 3 of these books follow Talia, who grew up in this like very oppressive, like small community in the country of Valdemar. Her community, her family lived on like the very border, and so like they were very isolated from the capital. But in the capital, there is this like position called a herald. It does kind of like stem from like the traditional meaning of herald of like, you know, like an announcer and like someone who like brings news and messages and stuff like that. But the position in this world is vastly different. And basically, there are these magical horses, and they're not horses because they have like the same intelligence of humans, and they're called companions, and they can be killed, but they are immortal. Talia has kind of lived her life reading like these stories of like the heralds and like the legends and like their great deeds, but she's never even like met a herald because of how isolated her community is. And then one day she stumbles across a companion, and she is chosen to be a herald, and she is whisked away to the capital to go to school and train and all of that. And along the way, she discovers that she has a magical gift for empathy. And basically, book 1 was her like trainee period. This book, I believe, should be her internship, where she gets like, she's promoted to full herald, but like she has to shadow another herald with more experience before she can like be out on her own doing other herald stuff. So yeah, this is what I will be reading next for the Magical Readathon. Now, in other news, I also went back to Barnes & Noble. If you saw last week's vlog, you know that there have been some new releases that I have been looking forward to for so long that are continuations in series that I'm in the middle of, and they didn't have some of the books that I wanted to pick up, so I placed an order. I have since gone back to Barnes & Noble. I didn't bring you with me this time, but look, I have Court of Wonders by Rin Chapeko. I'm so excited. Like, please let this work for one of the prompts of the lore quest. That's my hope for the rest of the month, is that I will somehow be able to sneak this into the Magical Readathon. I want to read it so bad. I also picked up, this is volume 4 of the Sailor Moon Eternal edition of the manga. I am like in the middle sort of this series, but like this is something that like I have consumed many times before. Yes, I am in the middle of this, but I've kind of been like taking my time with this series, and I usually only read like 1 or 2 volumes a year because I'm just slowly collecting these beautiful collector's editions. There you go. There is one of the smallest book hauls that you've ever seen. I am gonna go now. I think I need to do like some editing and answer emails and stuff. You're probably not gonna see me again today. Okay, I'm so sorry. I have been a really bad vlogger this second week. We're in week 3 now. The end of last week just ended up being super chaotic. I was able to finish Arrow's Flight by Mercedes Lackey, which is great. I was like, Jessica, please get your shit together and end your vlog because you gotta start a new one. Yeah, pretty much everything I said when I introduced that I was going to be reading this book is accurate. The plot of this is really just Talia doing her year and a half of internship to be like, because she is a full herald, but like she's got to be like a full herald. Most of the conflict of this book has to do with Talia and her magic, which she discovers in book 1 that she has empathy magic, and then it kind of goes a little bit out of control in this book. Her power isn't just like, oh my gosh, I can feel what other people are feeling. It actually is dangerous that she loses control over it. And then also just like what the day-to-day life of a herald that's out in the field is like. I'm giving this book like 3.5 stars. I really love Mercedes Lackey's writing. There's just something that is so comforting about the way this book is written. It's not like cozy fantasy in the way that we think of it today, because this book was written in the 80s, so it doesn't necessarily fit like the subgenres that we have today, but I do think that the feeling of this book is quite cozy. The writing of this book is quite cozy, but I will say that like the plot is kind of minimal, you know, and you can tell that this is Mercedes Lackey's first series. And like you can tell that even though she's talented as a writer, that she doesn't have very much writing experience. Overall, I'm really enjoying my time back in this world. I love it. I can't wait to keep reading. I did also want to mention too that like this book is a little bit dated. Like I don't know her as a person. Just so we're clear, we're not like friends. That would be cool, but we're not. But I know that like when she was writing these books, and again, I haven't read any of her more recent stuff either, so like I only can compare like her old things to her old things. She definitely was progressive for when she was writing, like for the time period. And like I'm not saying she was the only one by any means, but like she definitely has quite a few LGBTQIA characters throughout her novels. But I did want to say that like these are old books, and there is definitely like older terminology throughout the books that I think like you can just tell that it's a little bit dated, you know? So I did just want to acknowledge that and mention it. But yeah, I do recommend checking out Mercedes Lackey if you haven't already. Like I said, she's just a major comfort author for me. I also did want to mention that this is the trilogy that you need to start with in her world, even though this is definitely not her best work. Like, I know this for a fact, but this series has so much world building in it, like very crucial, important world building. Really, if you don't start with this series and you like just jump in later, you're gonna be so lost with like how this world works. Sorry if that's kind of a bummer, but like you do have to start here. So there you have it. Those are the 2 books that I read this week. Oh wow, it's a 3-star and a 3.5 star. So week 2, definitely not as strong as week 1, but hopefully week 3 will be a little bit better. Thank you so much for spending time with me this week. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. There will be more Magical Readathon content coming up next week. And again, if my channel is not enough for you, if you just need to get even more of that Magical Readathon fix, I will leave G, who is the creator, I'll leave her channel linked below. And again, I'll also link my friend Kitty, who is also participating in the Magical Readathon as well. If you feel like joining the Magical Readathon, it is not too late. You can join at any point in time. In fact, G has like a whole video on like how you can join and like where to start and all of that too. So that's on her channel available. If you are participating in the Magical Readathon, let me know what classes you are currently working on, and I will talk to you next week. Goodbye.